Hello? Oh, here boy. Oh, here boy. Come to Danny. Get the stick. Get the stick. Alright everybody, dinner's ready! Quirky Circuits is a fully cooperative programming game where players work together to program the actions of different robots using command cards from their hand to help all players achieve their objective. The catch here is that players are not allowed to discuss what command cards they've played or what they actually possess in their hands. So there's a huge deductive element when it comes to deciding what sort of cards players are going to program in their programming queue. If players can think alike and work together and program the right sequences of actions to complete the objective and hopefully satisfy the win con, then players will win the game.
When one thinks of programming or robotics, it usually involves staring at a computer, creating some cool algorithms and complex codes, enough to open an oyster of gaming design possibilities. Yet rarely does one imagine a cat riding a Roomba vacuum cleaner, or a flying robot bee that is more interested in delivering seeds around a garden, or a robotic dog that can dig up and deliver dinosaur fossils, or even a robot who serves sushi to kittens that look at you earnestly. Yet this is exactly what Quirky Circuits is about. Players who are familiar with other programming games such as Robo Rally or Colt Express will feel right at home when they uncover the goodies encased inside Quirky Circuits. At the beginning of each game, players will be picking a scenario from this very comprehensive scenario book and controlling the robot indicated on the scenario book's setup page. Each scenario in the book has a slightly different setup and objective for players to complete. Across the game, players will be attempting to maneuver their robot cooperatively by playing command cards drawn from the robot deck. These cards are placed into an action queue which will be activated once all players have contributed to the program. When playing these command cards, players are not allowed to discuss what actions appear on their cards. Players can contribute to the programming queue in any turn order as long as each player contributes at least one command card and the entire program is at least 5 command cards long. After all players are satisfied with their program, it's time to press the execute button. Players then execute the program by flipping each individual card over one at a time and moving the robot across the board.
You're probably thinking at this point that this game probably has a huge element of randomness with players blindly playing their command cards into the center, hoping for the best. Well, that's not entirely the case.
The back of each command card indicates what category of movement that player may plan to initiate when they place it in the programming queue. Up and down and left and right symbols may suggest whether a player wants to move the robot forward or backwards, clockwise or anti-clockwise. There is an element of deduction to this as players will never really know what the intention of the other players is. Where one player may play a rotate command card intending the robot to rotate clockwise, another player may misdeduce this and play a card moving the robot straight into a wall. Some command cards have a star on them indicating a special action that the robot may perform. This might involve putting an item down or picking an item up. Gold-bordered command cards that are in players' hands forces that player to play it before any of their other command cards, adding a proverbial spanner in the works. Gold command cards might involve moving 2 animals closer together, moving sushi along a conveyor belt, cause your robot to malfunction, or move items in the environment. These cards add an extra level of complexity and unpredictable challenge. Because of the limited number of command cards in players' hands, players will never truly know which cards each player has played, leading to some very hilarious situations.
Each robot has its own special programming ability which contributes to its own unique movement style.
Gizmo, the Roomba riding cat, rotates left when it collides with an obstacle or barrier. Twirl gains momentum when moving forward, and it has to be precise because any collision with any surrounding obstacles will diminish its power level. Rover can pick up and deliver objects with ease, whilst Lefty is a stationary robot that picks up multiple objects with its hands, each of a different length. To add further pressure to the system, the game has a ticker timer effect in the form of this battery track. Each round saps up the battery's energy, and if it ever reaches 0, the game is over and players lose.
Rather than including a single game board, the designers of this game have included a scenario book which features multiple game boards throughout. They've designed this book with the longevity and replayability of the game in mind. Each of the scenarios in this book increases with escalating difficulty, and there are sets of 4 scenarios, one for each of the different robots. And so as you gain more experience with a particular robot and progress to the next scenario, the scenarios become more complex, there's more new mechanics that are introduced, and the goals become a whole lot more challenging. The book really and well and truly builds on players' prior experiences, and it's kind of like playing a Super Mario World, and as you get further throughout the game, the levels become a whole lot more harder and a whole lot more difficult to win. So we're going to have a look at a couple of scenarios in the scenario book. In this scenario, Fragile Vases, Gizmo has to try and collect all of these Dust Bunny tokens around the room. Now, there's an added level of complexity here. If Gizmo ever accidentally runs into one of these vases, that will cause the vase to fall off and crash, and then that will create additional work for Gizmo to clean up. In this scenario uphill, this introduces some different environmental elements to the game. You've got these chairs which are surrounded by these blue dashed lines, and you've also got this green dashed line here which kind of represents an incline. So going in the direction of the arrow, Gizmo is going to be able to move quite easily. But when Gizmo has to return back to the other room and it has to go against the flow of the arrow, it's got to spend one of those action or command cards with 2 arrows or 3 arrows on it to try and scale the incline and head back to the other room. In the ant trail scenario, the ants can actually take and collect the food tokens and move it closer along this track towards their ant's nest. And if ever one of these tokens ever reaches the ant's nest, then the game is over for all the players. Now this introduces several levels of complexity. First of all, 12 can only carry 1 token at a time. Secondly, we don't know which destination these tokens are actually going to go to. There are 3 tokens that are in the game, but you only place 2 of them out. So this one goes to A, this one goes to B, and so each time you play this particular scenario, you won't actually know where you're going to have to deliver them to. What I really love about Rover is that he can actually hold some of the tiles in his mouth. Now, Rover has to be able to deliver these fossil items to the table in the correct orientation. So in order for Rover to deliver this piece here, it's got to cover these particular letters. So Rover has to kind of be in this position, drop the pieces so it forms a little jigsaw puzzle. And if players haven't kind of thought about the orientation beforehand, they can kind of find themselves in a little bit of a pickle like I have just then. In this lunch rush scenario, Lefty is a robot that kind of acts like a little chef. He's got 2 different length arms, so this one is long enough to reach the cats on this perimeter where you can see their orders are, and this arm here can reach 1 space across. The arms themselves can actually hold onto the items. Now, this scenario has some interesting complexities added to it. First of all, you need to be able to deliver the right items to the right cats, but not all of the items are prepared. This soup is already prepared, but the salmon has not yet been prepared. So Lefty has to kind of rotate its body around, pick up the little token, or the salmon token, and then deliver it to one of these little kitchen boards. Now you'll see that doesn't matter which way Lefty rotates, it's not long enough to reach one of the boards. Now, you've got Lefty on this conveyor, but there are some command cards in here, some gold command cards, that pushes Lefty along that conveyor belt. So sometimes he'll be here, sometimes he'll be here. And when he gets to this point, he can drop the salmon onto the little knife board, and it flips over and it becomes prepared, which he then can use another action to deliver that to the corresponding cat. Now in Riddle River, this is a pretty complex scenario. The aim of this particular scenario is to try and get all 3 objects to the northern side of the river. And it doesn't matter which spacing, they just have to be north of the river. There are some challenges in here that will really tap into some of those problem-solving skills. You've got the little chicken here, which whenever its command card comes up will move closer towards this wheat. And you've got this fox here on the left that whenever its command card comes up, moves closer towards the chicken. Now, if the chicken ever
lands on the same space as the wheat, the game is over. Or if the fox ever lands on the same space as the chicken, the game is also over. So it's trying to manage 3 targets that are kind of all heading towards each other, except for the wheat, of course. Now, sometimes if plays misprogram, Rover might find himself in the actual river. Now, you'll notice that along the river, there are all these arrows that point into it. So the only way to get out of the river is to be able to leap out of the river using Rover's leap action. And that adds another level of complexity.
What Quirky Circuits does really well is that it takes a simple concept and mechanism and it builds upon it. It takes a simple formula like playing action cards from your hand and gradually introduces different levels of complexity that makes the game feel more challenging and intuitive each time you approach it. This graded level approach means that the game can be accessible by different gamers with different levels of experiences. So new gamers can play the easier levels and more experienced gamers can play the more complex, challenging levels, and those later levels are extremely tough. The game rewards players with experience. The more you play, the better your group will be at completing the scenarios. In terms of gameplay and cooperative decision making, wow, Quirky Circuits is such an amazing family game. It's got this really cool, unique theme. Very easy entry level, very easy to learn and easy to get into, and the components are absolutely outstanding. I really love the decision making in this game. You got this beautiful group cooperative goal that everyone's trying to contribute to. You've also got this deductive element of looking at the backs of everybody's cards and at the backs of the cards in the action queue and thinking about, well, that player played that card and they're probably trying to move the robot forward and then rotate it, 90 degrees clockwise, and how does my actions in my hand allow me to contribute to this action sequence, because every player has to at least contribute 1 card. That kind of deductive puzzly element is truly what makes this game so good. Each player feels like they're fulfilling their role in the action sequence, and when you start revealing the cards and seeing where the robot actually goes, there's so many of those great aha moments. Oh, I knew you did that moment, which really makes each gameplay experience really memorable. I remember the first time I opened the game, I think I played through 4 consecutive scenarios in a row just because it was that fun and that good. And after the first scenario, we kind of got the hang of things and we just wanted to complete all of the objectives, and each scenario kind of built on the prior scenario, which, added a new twist or a new element or a new environmental factor that kind of changed the game up, which made it so much fun. What I also like is the fact that there are no player turn orders. You might see a sequence of actions that you can put down and you can put them down at any time. The fact that players are interpreting the sequence and the program in real time and putting in their sequence of cards when they think it actually is going to work is really quite inventive, and it really truly plays to the theme of the game. There are some points to consider if you think about getting Quirky Circuits for your board game collection. First of all, if you are a gamer that does not like putting the fate or the outcome of your game in other players' hands, then this is probably a game you're probably going to need to steer clear of. If you are a serious gamer who is really competitive, this is probably not one of those games. What this game is, it's a fun game that really brings people together and provides some really cool learning experiences, especially if you're playing with younger players. Now, if you've ever played the game Colt Express, it's kind of like a Western game set on a 3D train and players are programming their little character movements to steal loot from the train. Well, that game kind of increases in chaos when you have more and more players. Same thing can be said with Quirky Circuits. At the higher player count, you're going to have to try and keep in tune with 3 other minds, and trying to be on the same page as them is going to be a lot more difficult than just being in tune with 1 other player. I actually like Quirky Circuits as a 2-player game. It's just got this beautiful ebb and flow, and it really works so well at 2 players, and I can see that at a 3 or 4 player level this game can feel a little bit more frenetic and the best laid out plans can kind of go off skew. So sometimes in players' hands you might have a combination of cards that just don't really work. You might have 4 cards that all turn left, turn right and flip, your little robot 180 degrees. It's also trying to work out how to best contribute those cards to the sequence without disrupting the plans. And that is a huge problem-solving element to the game that I actually really, really like. The fact that I've got all these cards, how do I work it into the system to make it work for my group? In considering my final verdict, Quirky Circuits is such a great cooperative game. It provides for a rich learning experience, especially if you're playing with new gamers or younger players. It's a great gateway game for teaching people how to be really good programmers at a very simplistic level. It's an excellent game of solving problems. Its intuitive design and beautiful scenario book and beautiful components is really both visually engaging but also engaging for the mind. Thank you once again for joining me for another Board Game Sanctuary video. If you really like this video, please remember to like, subscribe, and share. I want to say a huge shout out and thank you to all the people who continually subscribe to my channel and who continually support me and my endeavors. It truly means a great deal to me. This is Danny signing out. Thank you once again for joining me. I'll see you guys again soon for another Board Game Sanctuary video. Goodbye! Alright, now, how do I untangle all these wires and who knows where they get plugged into?